So let's talk side hops. Side hops in trials, those boys can go up to massive stuff. I'm talking shoulder height, head height stuff. They've got super light bikes, but obviously on the e-bike we're a bit more restricted to those heights that we can achieve. There's also a couple of different techniques on the side hops. I'm going to show you them now. This is the basic version. This is a really good one out on the trail if you want to hop over a rut, or you simply want to change line quickly. If you can hop sideways, it's really going to help out on the trails. Let's take a look at how we do that now. All I'm doing is coming into it, nice speed, sort of jogging pace, good foot forward, coming in, riding into it as though I'm doing a regular bunny hop. But what I'm doing before I come into that regular bunny hop pose is fixating on where I want to land that bike on the other side of the curb. So I've come in, loaded the bike up on the suspension by squishing it in. I focus on that spot, and as I come up to lifting that bike up into the air, releasing that energy, I started a tilt with my head, shoulders, hips, my feet, transferring that energy from forwards to sideways. So I'm following that through with my legs, pushing through into the pedals, transferring that force up and sideways to land away and ride away nice and smooth. Okay, so let's break down that trial style side hop. It's a really advanced maneuver actually, but for the trial style side hop, all we're doing is getting pedals level, good foot forward. In fact, I actually slightly raise my pedals up from being level, so I'm about 1/4 to something like that on my pedals, so sideways so I can jab at those pedals. So what I'm doing, balancing, track stand, get those pedals level, get my weight back over the back wheel. I lean in with my head and my upper body, squash down into the bike whilst driving down into the crank, loading the bike suspension up, and lifting it all up sideways, focusing on the curb and my landing spot, trying to land both wheels on there and ride out of it nice and smoothly. It is a really advanced technique. You can work your way up higher and higher, but it's quite a hard maneuver on an e-bike. Whoa! So straight away, I've come around this corner, it's run me nice and wide, but I can see in front of me this big root and rocks that have washed down the trail, blocking my line. So what I'm going to need to employ is that trial side hop technique, get me out of this rut, get me into that high line in the middle of the trail, make this bit flow a lot easier. Let's talk about balance. The way I'm doing this, just working my way nice and smoothly, laying off the brakes, focusing on that midpoint on the wall. This is quite tech because it is quite bumpy, especially towards the end. I'm really battling with it, but you might have noticed I didn't take full pedal turns. I'm just jabbing at the pedals. That way I can keep my momentum. More momentum creates more balance too. If you go really slow, you're going to be all over the place. Just try and commit to that line, stay balanced, stay relaxed, stay focused. Things like Danny Mac, he can ride along a wire. I've seen that guy ride along a wire about this narrow all the way along on his trials bike. Trials boys have balance dialed. No reason for you not to practice it out on the streets. So when you hit the trails, a narrow single track becomes twice as easy. North Shore is a doddle, and you just end up being the balance king. So this bit of trail here comes in from that skill when we were riding those real skinny walls out on the street, keeping our balance. This is a real skinny trail, got to drop into the river one side, got some big roots, rocks, it's pretty tech. So the only way I'm going to get in through here is keeping my balance, keeping little short stabs, just like we did on the wall to keep our balance, keeping that flow going, mesmerizing that middle of the trail, keeping that line nice and flow. So we just come in, nice little stabs the whole way through. So the regular endo isn't much use to you out on the trail. One that is used to you is the 180 endo. That's where we pivot that bike on the front wheel 180 degrees, using that front brake to pivot the whole bike round. This is how we do it. So one thing before you even attempt this, you need to be comfortable with your regular endo. Regular endo is this. It's using that front brake and scooping up that back wheel whilst holding onto the front brake, bringing that back end of the bike. For the 180 endo, we just add a little something to the mix. So let's break that 180 endo down. It's quite an advanced maneuver on the e-bike, but it's a really good one to have out on the trails. So all I'm doing is I'm coming in, nice rolling speed, working up really slowly to this one. But as I come in, I focus on a spot on the ground where I want to perform the maneuver. As I come into it, I'm turning that bar, and it's only when my bars a turn in, I apply that front brake. Once I've applied that front brake, I've turned my hips in, tilted my head, tilted my upper body, tilted my hips, and I'm starting to perform that spin. When I'm about this position on the front wheel, I'm looking back, so my head's continuing and making that whole bike pirouette. I'm holding on to that front brake all the time. It's only when that back wheel touches on the ground, I've let go of that front brake, turn nice and straight to ride away really clean. So that's the 180 dialed on flat ground on the street. Let's take it to the trails. So I've got a really tight turn coming up ahead. I'm not going to apply the endo technique. It becomes really sketchy. I can't actually hardly turn to get down into that corner. I can barely make it. So this time I'm going to approach and use the 180 endo technique. Watch how much faster and easier it becomes. So come in, that turn, go. So you might have learnt that 180 endo out on the trails, but the trials boys, one of their favourite is the Rock Walk 360. This isn't actually going to be any use to you out on the trails. It's basically hit a 180 on the front wheel to land to 180 off the back wheel, so you're completing a 360 spin. This one is really cool. So that's a pretty cool trick, the Rock Walk. It's really one to wow your mates in the car park. So say not much use on the trail, but how we do it is the 180 endo technique. So if you've got your 180 endo dialed, all we're doing is the 180 endo. As soon as that back wheel touches, you look back into the spin again, holding that back brake out, look back over your shoulder, keep that front end high, keep it pivoting on the back wheel, keep looking forwards, and hopefully that bike should continue to spin and you ride out and everyone buys you a coffee down the coffee shop for being the boss of the car park. So in trials, it becomes vitally important to be able to move that bike around all over the place. We're talking about moving that bike through 360 degrees, hopping it, spinning round, things like that. But on the e-bike, it's quite hard. So the way we can move that bike around on a standstill is by doing front and rear wheel lifts, moving that bike around. Let's take a look at how we do that now. It's a really cool way to get into moving that bike around the 360 is actually just to rock back and forward on your e-bike. So you keep your front brake and your rear brake locked on and literally rock back and forwards, lifting that front wheel, back wheel, and all you need to do is in those rocks, just add a little hip movement, pick that front wheel up, and just start working your way around front, rear wheel, front and back brake, hopping it, moving those hips, just experiment with weight shifts, and you'll soon be able to move that bike around in a full 360. So trials, it's all about linking it and making it flow. This time, I've got a stair set in front of me. I'm doing the track stand now. I'm gonna go up the stairs, 180 endo, front touch up onto the wall, balance along the wall, then drop off the end. Let's give it a go, all in one. So that felt really good. I linked all those moves into one run. Thing is, you can replicate this out on the trails, find those hard to ride obstacles, make a little track. It's really good practice. Okay, so like we saw on the street, finding those trial sections out on the trails is also a really fun way of developing more skills into your e-bike riding. In front of me here, I'm going to be doing the track stand. Then I've got a technical double step. Then I'm going to do a 180 endo, shuffle that bike around, come back round, and do the drop-off technique back down onto the trail. Seeing if I can do it without putting my foot down. If I put my foot down, I'm going to score myself a 1. If I put both feet down, it's going to be a 5. So I'm trying to complete this section on a clean, which means no dabs. This comes from motorbike trials, but you can add loads of little sections in around the woods. A really fun way to challenge your mates to try and get those trial sections clean. Let's give this one a go using all those different trials techniques. Right, so track stand first, double step. Up, so round. I'm going to use that pivoting technique. Look here, it's a tight turn. Oh, I've got a 1 there. Wheel spin on a frog, a log. Now I'm just going to hit turbo and boost down back over those sleepers, hopefully. So I did that section with a 1. Next time, I'm going to try and clean it. That wraps up today's video on trials on the trails. Don't forget to practice those trials and streak techniques, because it pays massive dividends when you hit the trails. You can see all those sticky situations that I got out of today with a bit of trials skill. If you've enjoyed today's video, we've got loads more. We've got Steve with Hannah Barnes up here, big epic ride, check that one out. And also Speed with myself, trying to do 100 kilometers on an e-bike. Was it even possible? Check out that vid down here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more e-bike content. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. Don't forget to drop us some comments in the box below. And don't forget to keep practicing those trial skills.
So here we are joining a lesson on a blue corner at Glen Tress with Chris. He's had a couple of runs now, and we're going to go back and break down the corner. Now this corner is kind of interesting because there's a slight berm, but it's pretty much flat. As flat as you're going to get at a trail centre, and there's nothing on the exit, it just drops away completely. So line choice is crucial, because setting up early will mean that you're not going to run really wide and pull the brakes on like you did. So I'm kind of hoping that actually just with getting you to ride in the right place, you know, your braking will sort itself out.
I felt like I was wide.
Okay.
Where was I?
Well, you were wide. You were wide for the most worn-in line. A clean line. It's always a slightly lighter colour to the rest. You see it on the rest of the trail. It's about, I don't know, a foot wide, 2 feet wide, and it runs all the way down around the corner. And you can see a nice light bit. So that's where everyone gets attracted to, like flies around the lamp. So there's nothing wrong with going from that edge of the trail. So that edge of the trail, that's how wide the trail is. So you want to try and use that as much as possible, and this relates to carrying speed. A lot of the time people think they're running really wide on the trail, or they're running really tight on the trail. But they're only running wide and tight in relation to that clean line, which is only about a third of the width of the trail usually, right slap bang in the middle. So for here, I want you to use the whole trail, from grass to grass, or the whole gravel section. And if you were to do that, where do you think you would go?
I would go outside of this route, hopefully.
Okay.
And then I would probably go just about here.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Like almost. That. Almost. Yeah. I mean, I'll put my bike down.
Like really onto the apex.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In that route, a lot of people see that route because they're looking down, and they think that that's almost the marker of the edge of the trail. Right. But as you just spotted, there's actually a whole section trail to the left of that. Now by going above the route, it makes the corner a lot wider, and the bigger the corner is, the faster you can go around it, the less you have to brake and the less you have to steer. It also means that you can start your corner earlier, and you can set that path and stay all the way around. So there's no 50p piece, it's just one big corner. It's not lots and lots of little turns.
If I'm up here, are you looking what? Or just to where your back wheel is, or where?
You're pretty much looking towards almost as far around the corner as you can. You know, the faster you go, the further you're going to have to look down the trail. But what we're trying to avoid is getting, if you're looking down here, you're riding very reactively. So whatever's happening in front of your tyre, that's what you're trying to avoid, or you're trying to adapt to. Whereas if we can get you looking maybe up to sort of 3 meters, let's say, past the front of your front wheel, then you're actually already processing the information that's happening up ahead, and you're setting up for it. So when I was where you're standing, I was actually looking about here, so kind of into the apex of the corner, and that's what let me bring the bike from there onto this line round into the middle of the corner. And then once I was here, I was looking towards the exit of the corner. you came in wide of the route, you were perfect part of the trail. You then let it run all the way wide around the corner, and that's when you pulled the brakes on.
I think I was looking at these marbles.
Exactly, because you were wider. So when you've chosen your wide line, you've gone onto it. I then want you to look round the corner and look where you want to go. Don't look at what you don't want to hit. I started really wide. Once I started my corner, I kind of looked towards the middle of the trail here. And once I was kind of at the middle of the trail, I was already therefore looking at the exit and where I wanted to go. So the corner was massive, much bigger than the corner you've been doing, and therefore it was very easy. I didn't feel like I was going to slide or lose control at any point. Excellent. Fantastic. Much better. You see that already your braking corrected itself.
Whereas in the past I would come in here, full on the brakes, then try and grind some kind of speed out of this corner, full on the brakes, likewise the whole way down. That one, it felt like I could probably a few pedal strokes each corner, and
Yeah, perfect.
and I didn't brake as much as I've done in the past, I don't think.
So the first thing that happens when you pull the brakes on is that your bike will straighten itself up and it'll pull itself off the outside of the corner. And that's why if you look at this, there's all those skid marks over there, down at the exit. Because most people brake where you are, right in the middle of the corner. Their bike sits up in the turn like Valentino Rossi, pull his brakes on.
And they go wider.
Pull you straight off the back. Yeah, and that's why people end up here. See all those tyre marks going off over here? Only caused because of braking. The majority of crashes probably, I don't know, not scientific, but 80-90% of crashes I think that happen on corners because people brake. And it's a vicious circle because people brake because they think they want to regain some control, but in actual fact it's the braking that's causing the loss of control. So this time you're going to pass the bag, you're going to make sure that you've done your braking before that. So you've done the braking on the straight part of the trail where you've got loads of grip and loads of balance. And then as you come in you'll find that you'll be slower initially than what you're used to, but you'll actually pick up speed and you'll be accelerating where you weren't before. And that acceleration and letting the tyres run will increase your grip dramatically. Because again, another reason why not to brake is that when you pull the brakes on, the force that's being applied to here is causing a lot of loss of traction at the tyre. And the minute the grip between your pads and your rotor become greater than the grip between the ground and your tyre, you skid. And skidding is a bad move because that's a loss of control. So pass the bag, off the brakes, and it'll feel a bit like a runaway train because, as I said, you'll be accelerating, but that acceleration is going to give you loads of grip. So start off slower than you used to, and just see how you go.
Oh.
Try it again.
You can't multitask, eh? So I'll go again, sorry.
Yeah, that's alright.
I'm too busy thinking about braking and not...
You may notice that his body position is still not quite right, but we're just introducing one thing at a time because there's a lot going on underneath the tyres and the speed's getting faster, so the last thing we want to do is tell him to do 3 things all at once. So now that he's got his line, once he gets his braking, we'll actually introduce body position into this as well, and you'll find that you'll become even more stable. Good stuff. There you go, his body position started to correct itself again already. So just like line choice has started to correct his braking is now actually starting to correct his body position. How was that?
Didn't brake.
Yeah. I know.
It's a start, isn't it?
Good. Well, did you notice anything? You can actually see the bike compressing because the suspension was working. You can actually hear the tyres getting grip from the ground. So that kind of really deep sound as you hit that middle of the corners is a really good sign. So.
I was quite surprised when I got to here. I wasn't sure if it was because I was going slower, but I was quite surprised that it didn't end up wider.
Right.
I actually was quite surprised. I was trying to figure out why I was sort of here when every other time I've been sort of drifting to the outside, and I don't know, is that the grip thing you're talking about?
Exactly, yeah. And you generated so much grip that you actually stuck further to the right hand side of the trail than you have done so far. And the reason you've been ending up over there the last few times is pretty much because you've still been feathering the brakes in the turn, which goes back to what we were saying about the bike sitting up in the turn when you pull the brakes on. So you had so much grip, I think it took you a bit by surprise, and you actually shot yourself to the side of the trail. and that's how you ride fast. That's, you know, it's that acceleration and that grip. Like you've already said, you don't need to pedal as much. You'd be surprised at how much less you need to pedal when you start working on your braking as well. Because your exit speed is actually starting from here. So the speed you're getting on the trail way down there, like 10 metres down the trail, is actually started here. Whereas normally, it doesn't start for you until here, where it's flat. Which is why you're having to pedal.
Right, and there's not much gravity there. No. Right.
So you're using all that gradient and all this grip. You're actually building loads of speed, which is firing along that straight. Compared to before, where you were braking to here and then no speed on the pedals. Not only is it knackering, but it doesn't feel as much fun.
I'm one for always complaining about my back tyre. Not been gripping enough.
So initially when we started the corner, you're coming in tight, pulling the brakes on halfway round. Your pedal stayed completely level the whole time. You were looking down at your front wheel. We've now changed where you're looking. We changed your line and we sorted your braking out, and without even knowing it, you've actually now started to push a lot more weight through your outside pedal. Part of the reason you're doing that is because you're off the brakes, your body's starting to relax more. Because when you pull the brakes on, you're having to brace yourself from sort of falling over the bars or whatever. You know, the bike's trying to slow down and you're having to hold yourself against that force. So now by accelerating, you're actually able to move your body more without even probably knowing it. But what I want to change a little bit is I want you to start consciously now thinking about how to use your body to get more grip. So we can now do this because your braking's good and because your line's good. If you need more grip, rather than thinking of pulling the brakes on, I want you to push harder through your outside leg. And when it gets to the point where your feet are like down at the bottom, you're almost like you're skiing, you're pushing weight through your knee, over your toe. If you still think you need more grip, you can actually shift your weight over your outside leg from your hips. So you're still quite stiff in the middle of the bike. I want you now to soften up your arms, soften up your legs, and use your hips.
So the hip movement, is that a little bit like turning your body into a corner, a little bit like a ski move? Is it just a little bit of a shift? I mean, you're not turning outwards, are you? You're turning,
yeah.
You're kind of turning into the corner.
Exactly, yeah.
So in other words, your hips are coming this way. You're trying to get them to be pointing a little bit more down the hill, kind of thing.
Perfect. You're leading with your head, so you're looking down the trail,
right?
And that's what's hopefully using your head to look down the trail around the corner. Will actually start to pull your body around the corner after it. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're actually starting to slightly shift your weight in towards the corner. You should never find that you're stuck in one position at any point when you're riding a mountain bike. You should always, even if it's just fractional movements, you should always moving that little bit. But it is a very gradual movement, and it's never going to be the same. It's kind of the great thing with mountain biking, is it's not like golf where a drive's going to be the same hundreds and hundreds of times over. Every corner is going to be different, and sometimes the same corner between rides will be different, weather change or the amount of traffic that's had at the weekend or whatever. So you need to constantly be thinking about what's happening underneath your tyres by sort of scanning the trail ahead and adjusting to that. And that's what will help sort of keep your speed going as well, because you're not forcing the bike, just letting the bike run through the turn.
I reckon I just focus on line and braking and then body, which is kind of in the order that we covered it. And I think if you just keep on thinking about that and just concentrate on that, it'll start to come naturally. So, but it was really good man.
So here we are with a really nice, basic, long, sweeping berm. As you can see, the berm's not actually too steep. It's a very nice mellow gradient and it's very even all the way to the exit. And that means that you can set up and do your turning throughout the entire berm, and you want to use as much of the berm as you possibly can. At a forest centre, you usually want to try and choose the cleanest line. You'll probably notice that a lot of gravel collects at the bottom of a berm, and it's usually quite loose and unfinished at the top. So try and choose a nice hard packed smooth area to ride on, and try and keep your corner one nice big even sweeping turn rather than like the edge of a 50p piece coin. You want to let off the brakes, and that'll let the bike sit nice at an angle. Try and lean in so that the contact patch of your tyres is very similar to that of when you're on the flat ground. So the middle part of your tyres wants to grip, and therefore you have to lean. You want to look towards the end of the corner and just let the speed pick up. So a really crucial part of riding any corners, and particularly berms, is you've got to be standing up out the saddle. There's a lot of berm there, and the exit's really nice and supportive, so use it to your advantage. You guys are both, you're coming into it, then you're tightening it up. Just remember it's one corner, it's one big corner. So once you set up for it, you want to stay on that the whole way around, stay on that line, stay on that path. So a really important part of riding any corner is to make sure you're standing up out the saddle, allowing you to move around.
The way that I've been kind of told is when you hit a berm or something, you're putting your pedal down straight away. So would you only do that if you felt you needed more grip?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If we went over into a really long, mellow berm, the chances of you actually being like that on your pedals are quite slim.
Right.
You'll probably find that you're maybe slightly low on the outside foot, but not all the way down.
Okay.
So, again, it's just like anything, you need to react and ride the trail that's underneath your bike.
Right.
So it's not applying a fixed skill. Round a berm, I put my pedal down. It's that weight transfer thing. So the more weight you need to transfer over your outside leg, the more that pedal will drop.
Putting your pedal down's a reaction thing then? It's a control reaction rather than just part of the discipline of going around a berm?
Pretty much.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Pretty much. So with any switchback, the setup and your line choice is absolutely crucial. The aim of this section is to carry as much speed as you can around the switchback and therefore more speed into the next section of trail. Now we're actually going to use as much of the track as we can, and we're going to set up nice and wide for the corner in order to give us as much space as possible. And you do that by setting up to the opposite side of the trail on the entrance. So for this switchback, it's actually a right-hander, we're going to set up on the right-hand side of the trail. And this is going to then allow us to plot our line up to the left, and we're going to use this huge bank up here on the left, and by coming out from being wide on the trail we can then head up the bank and use all that momentum. Any braking you're going to do or should have done should be done back on the flat part of the trail, and then use the bank to slow you down a little bit. Play around with coming in at different speeds, and you'll find that once you get better you'll be able to actually read the terrain and use the gradient increase to slow you down. So the faster you go, the further up the bank you want to come, and from up here you want to then start looking towards the apex of the corner, the inside line. When your speed starts to tail off, you then want to use your shoulders and your head to lead yourself into the corner. Your weight then needs to transfer to the outside foot, just like in any flat corner or berm, and you want to stay off the brakes to maintain grip all the way around the corner. So after a couple of attempts on his own, we're just talking Rory through changing his line and using the bank to actually make the corner much bigger. You can see he was riding a really tight line, but now that we've opened up the entrance, he's carrying much more speed. Kind of relating it back to flat corners, when you get something so steep and there's a bank on the entrance, you can actually use the bank to make the corner bigger, which makes riding a lot more fun and a lot faster, a lot less effort. So what I did on my approach, I looked left onto the outside of the trail, and I actually used the bank, went up the bank as wide as I could until I felt like I was losing enough speed, and when that crucial point in speed sort of slowed down and changed, I then dropped my head, looked round the corner to where I was going to go, and let the bike roll off the bank and into the corner. So I made a very big corner, one big corner as well, rather than two corners. I carried my speed well, and it allowed me to maintain a stable body position. So we've put this section together to highlight some of the more difficult corners and a lot of black routes throughout trail centres around the country. These corners use a combination of varying techniques from switchbacks to flat corners and berms, and if you watch the following examples, you'll see how you can apply everything to make them much easier and much faster. Although the trails may be only about a foot wide at this point, coming into the section you can actually set up wide using the grass on this edge of the trail. And even though it's only maybe a foot or so outside of where the most worn line is, it'll make a massive difference to opening up the entrance to the corner. And from here you want to start looking into the section, over this top drop, and then let the bike run wide. So I've chosen the line that allows me to use that big flat rock and the smooth bank afters to turn against, avoiding all these awkward little drops and small rocks on the inside of the corner. So I've done my braking, killed my speed up here. I'm very balanced, very sort of centered on the bike. I use a lot of body language to get my way around this because the bike's going to be moving around on the rocks a lot. So that's no bad thing, let the bike move around. And once you get to about here, mid part of the corner, you want to make sure that you're off the brakes and let the bike roll out and accelerate over the rocks. Firstly, you'll get a lot of exit speed, and secondly, the bike will remain incredibly stable. So you see on the entry to a section like this, you've got this drop off, but to the outside, to our left, the drop's actually considerably lower at this point than it is here. And where the higher drop is, it's also on the inside of the corner and follows straight away by two smaller drops. Whereas if we look towards the outside of the corner, the drop's a lot smaller and it leads you all the way onto these smooth rocks here. So although they actually look very small, they're quite solid. They're quite solid, they're not going to move anywhere, and they're actually relatively smooth, like a cobbled road. So you actually get a lot of stability and a lot of grip off those, and it'll just allow you to stay balanced and accelerate around the corner. So here we are at Glen Tress, and we found a section of trail here that has a very tight corner, tightens on the exit. There's a lot of big rocks and some roots in the way. So there's three main line options here. The most popular one, as you can tell by the chainring marks on this rock, is right over the middle. Now if you were to choose this line, a very important part would be to use the rock after to slightly mellow out the gradient. That way you're going to have less of a drop and your weight's not going to have to shift quite so far. It's also giving your bike more chance to clear this large rock. Now this isn't too bad a choice as the corner still stays relatively wide, but just like switchbacks and flat corners, you want to try and make every corner as big as possible. The other line a lot of people choose is to go around the left. Now understandably, this line is very smooth and it misses all the rocks and therefore a popular choice. But you end up on the inside of the corner and a very, very tight exit, meaning you're going to have almost next to no exit speed whatsoever, and it'll push you towards the outside of the trail. Something you don't want to do when there's as much loose gravel as there is here. You can see this is all very loose, almost like marbles. So my personal recommendation and my personal choice in a section of trail like this would be to slightly sort of widen your horizons a bit. Have a look from the entrance. That by setting up wide, again very similar to that of a switchback or a flat corner, you can slightly apex the corner and you can run out wide. I've chosen this nice smooth section here to set me up. I've started my corner in this area and then I've dropped in off this rock looking towards the exit of the corner, and my bike therefore is already at an angle to set me up all the way around the turn. Here we've got quite a typical, very shallow wooded corner. You can see that it's quite loose under the tyres, and the corner is quite mellow, but there's no real berm, and there's nothing that looks like it would provide a lot of support. But just by treating it like a flat corner, like any flat gravelly corner, and shifting your weight with your hips to your outside foot, you can push in really hard into a turn like this and almost demand grip from the bike. So you can see here, really clearly, you've got a lot of tyre marks, quite a deep rut forming here, and this is actually where you should be applying the pressure. So as the corner comes in, and again as I said it's a very mellow corner, just push in through your outside foot and don't be scared to push really hard, because the harder you push and the more weight you shift with your hips, the more grip you're going to get and the more speed you're going to carry out. So you don't always have to travel miles from your home to the nearest purpose-built trail centre. Sometimes some of the best riding you can find and the best stuff to practice on is just in your local woods or in a field nearby your house. Just get out there and practice all these things and you'll be surprised at what you can actually learn and how well you can actually ride just on very local, very smooth trails. Some of the best flat corners and little berms can be found just in your local woods, or you can just make yourself something in 5 minutes with a spade or with your feet and just session it and session it and session it until you get the techniques perfect. And then when you get to your local trail, when you've driven miles, then you can actually just put all that stuff into practice and have a great time. So here we're going to look at roll-ins and really quick changes in gradient. So on any steep section of trail, whether it's wood, rocks or dirt, body position and weight shift are really important. So with this you want to make sure that you're moving from the hips and that all your balance is very low and that you use as much space behind the saddle as possible. It's very common for people to think that the saddle has to remain between their legs and they move their shoulders, whereas in a section like this all the movement comes from the hips, then push the weight as far back as possible and extend the arms. A balanced entry, very controlled entrance speed, and then letting off the brakes and allowing the bike to roll down while your weight gradually moves forwards again is absolutely crucial, and you'll stay completely in balance and enjoy yourself. You know, the best thing to do is kill your speed on the way in. Approach it very slow. You can almost roll to a stop at the top, and then just that little bit of acceleration will just keep you balanced on the way down.
Okay.
You caught air. Did you notice that?
Yeah, was that the kind of the bit where there was a sharp intake of breath before I caught air before? Yeah, no, I did both. Didn't roll it. So I guess too fast into it, I suppose.
No, you actually pulled the bike up there. It was almost like a kind of a panic reaction.
Well, yeah, I know. I got the fear there, definitely.
Why did you get the fear?
Wow. So, you know, staring at a certain death, or staring into the abyss or whatever else, you kind of go. Ah! You kind of like that and sort of drawing breath as you do.
But as you lifted, did you feel out of control?
So I wasn't as in control as I would have been if I'd kind of done what we talk about. Hips back over the saddle and arms straight and just trust that the bike's going to roll out.
Did you know your hips stayed pretty much in line with the seat?
It's all hardwired in stuff. You know, if somebody habitually does something wrong or habitually does something poorly because they get the fear, it's quite hard getting people out to think their way through a manoeuvre. So yeah, the intake of breath was kind of a taking hold of the bike.
Knee-jerk reaction to...
Yeah, knee-jerk reaction's a pretty good way of putting it. You know, wow, there's a big drop. What do I do? Pull in. Not really thinking about it, you just do it. I guess that's quite a hard thing to get over. You're kind of, you're reacting, you're not really thinking if you get the fear.
This diagram clearly shows, and from my shoulders back is in the green zone that we've highlighted, whereas you can see that a lot of Rory's upper body is still over the front of his bike, meaning he's losing control and his balance is really off. If you watch this in full speed, you'll see that by Rory keeping his weight so far over the front, his back wheel almost leaves the ground and the loss of control could result in a fairly bad smash. The manual is probably one of the most used techniques. You can use it at any given point on any descent, so the trick is to find a nice mellow downhill gradient. Firstly, if you're going quite slow, a slight forwards movement can help to preload the bike, almost like coiling a spring. And from this position, you want to thrust backwards with your arms, moving your hips over the back of the bike, and the trick at this point is to not allow the front wheel to leave the ground until your arms are straight. So if you can imagine moving back like this, when you get to this point with your arms straight, if you keep moving back, the front wheel has no choice but to lift up. Now at the same time, if you can use your legs to thrust forwards, you can actually have the bottom half of your body moving this direction, which will be pushing the back wheel under the front, and your upper body and your hips moving in this direction, which is pulling the front of the bike up. So between the two, if you get your timing right, you should feel very effortless. And with a slight flick and using that momentum you've built with your body weight, the front wheel should lift up no problem at all. Yeah, really good thing to think about is just keep a couple of fingers covering the back brake, so if it does go a little bit pear-shaped, the back brake's going to bring that front wheel down straight away. So once you've mastered the art of actually learning to manual on the flat, if you can start getting into the habit of dropping heels and using your legs, you can use the manual in all manner of situations out on the trail. By using your legs and extending the back wheel into compressions, you can manual through doubles, manual through loop sections, or the most common one would be puddles.